Okay, you guys, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about today. I want to clarify some things because I got a bunch of questions about my decisions with Quest and puppy testing, and I thought that didn't really work, and all those things. So I want to take some time, and we'll probably do this over the course of a couple of videos. Otherwise I could probably just talk for days. But I want to talk a little bit about nature versus nurture, my thoughts on that. And why I made the choices I made with Quest, and what I saw and what I don't believe can be seen, and all of those things. So the first thing I want to start with is I see a lot of in our culture today, like, hey, look at me, my puppy's doing all these things when they're doing really well. They're fun. And I mean, I love that, right? I love people having fun with their puppies. They're doing great. And then I'm like looking around, where are they at 2 years old? Where are they at 3 years old? Are you hitting the trial field? Are you doing the things? Are you still having this kind of fun? And so often it's, oh, that dog didn't work out, and I'm getting a new dog. And what do you mean you're getting a new dog? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, I literally have never. I have one time stopped at an IGP-2 with a dog because I knew he really did not like obedience. And that actually showed, by the way, in his testing, but I ignored it because my heart wanted him. And and um, and I had another young dog coming up that was just a powerhouse. So I did that, but I just altered his activities. I'm not one to wash dogs and generally place them. I'm not saying that's the wrong thing for a dog, but I am saying if you're doing that consistently, you know, you might you might think through some other things, okay? Because one thing, when I'm as a breeder, when people come and they say, hey, well, is this puppy going to be good for Schutzen? Is this puppy going to be good for Ring? What is this puppy going to be good for? And like, that's not something puppy testing can tell you. Is this puppy going to be able to get to the podium? That's not something puppy testing can tell you. Um, if people say, "Oh, I want a dog that can be really competitive at a high level," my first look is, what are your skills? How able are you to train the dog in front of you? Not just a dog in front of you, the dog that this puppy is going to grow up to be. How able do you know how to mold this puppy from what you have genetically in the package, and accentuate the strengths and de-accentuate the weaknesses, because every dog has strengths and weaknesses, and every handler has strengths and weaknesses. And the real money, the real, not money, but the real win is when you find the dog that matches your personality. So I had that years and years and years ago, with my little pocket rocket Rio. She was just my heart dog. She was crazy as can be. And I'd show up in base camp, and people would be like, "Oh God, how do you live with that dog, Sherry?" And I'm like, love her. She's not an easy dog to live with. She's not terrible when it's just me, but when people came around, she's always stimulated and going. But then they would watch her work and they'd be like, "That's the best working shepherd I've ever seen." And I'm like, and that's how I live with her. I can tolerate that. I can do that. Not everybody can. That wouldn't be right. That wouldn't be a right fit for somebody else. And I had a friend who was equally good team with his dog, and they were the complete opposites of us. They were slower, methodical, thought through everything, really a wonderful team. The key was in the match. If I had his dog and he had my dog, neither team would be a very good team. The key was the match, okay? So when I look at puppy testing, I'm looking at the handler's personality, and I'm looking at the puppy's personality. I'm looking at the handler's experience, and I'm looking at, well, the puppies don't have experience. I'm looking at the puppy's personality, and I'm looking at the genetics. And then nurture or training is going to be the rest of the story. And it's going to be much stronger than nature, but nature's going to be stronger in some other ways. You can't make the genetic ceiling go up. You can only get it as high as it can go if you're good at your job as a trainer. You can't make it go up. There's just, every dog is going to have a genetic ceiling somewhere. That's just how it is. So when I'm looking at puppy tests, let's start first with puppy testing, and we'll keep that kind of the focus of this video, and then we'll talk a little bit more about some of the other stuff, or maybe I'll get through it all. So when I'm looking at puppy testing, I think one of the things is a lot of people think, oh, well, that's not really valid because puppies are a crapshoot. There's truth to that. There's truth to that, but only if you're looking at it from this puppy's going to be the next world champion, or capable of this, or capable of that. But if you're looking at it from a realistic perspective, which is, what genetic traits does this puppy show? What genetic traits do I know I like? And the question is, how do you know you like them if you haven't done it? So I have been very fortunate to have been well mentored and seen testing. And all my puppies that I've had, kind of except for Quest, have had really good puppy testing that's really identified character traits. And I know what character traits that I see in puppies that make me go, that's my puppy. That's my dog. That's my perfect match. The thing is, there aren't a lot of those. And that's probably a good thing for the world, because there's not many people that like the kind of crazy I like. So when I'm looking at puppy testing, what I'm looking at is, first of all, it has to be a valid puppy test. So I don't care what puppy test you do, it has to be in a new environment to the puppies, and the puppies have to be tested one at a time and with a strange person, not with somebody they know, not in an area they know, not in a familiar area, because that's where you're going to see the genetics of how the puppy handles a new environment. That's where you're going to see that. If you don't have it in a new area, you're not going to see that, and it makes a big difference. So I'm going to look at certain things, and usually what happens in these puppy tests is the puppy gets put down somewhere away from the person that's hanging out in the environment. They're very quiet, and we just watch and see. Does the puppy go explore? Do they come out of they're usually put like in a little hidey spot. Do they come out really fast? Do they come out and go, oh my gosh, I'm in the world, I'm going back in like a crate-like thing or a little den? Or do they come out really slow? Or do they ever not come out? Like, that can be a thing too. And once they come out, are they coming out and looking around at stuff? Like, usually we have some things scattered so we can see, and there's usually one open walkway, which you'd think an open walkway would be the way you'd go, but a puppy going through a big open field, if you will, is vulnerable to predators. So it is not genetically normal. And what is normal is for them to look for, like, hey, I'll hang by this side, or I'll hang by this thing, or whatever. The puppies that go straight across, they're very fun to watch. They're very bold. That's my dog. That's the dogs I like. Now, that isn't as fun when they're a year old. If that's not managed at a year old, that's the dog that's super independent, not listening to their owners. Like, it's harder to train. They're a little bit bolder. Those are dogs we do think of going into the bite sports. The dogs that are just going to be like, I got this. On the flip side, you have dogs that are maybe once they find the person, dogs that maybe they hang and they slink around, not slink, but like they stay close to things and they're paying attention, like, to their environment. Those are dogs that we've seen and generally do really well with the characteristics we generally want in a search dog. And that's how I came about my first dog in that style of testing. And then we have dogs that once they find the person, they never really want to leave. And those are wonderful family companions, right? So we can tell those things, and we can check noise sensitivities, and we can check boldness and independence dependence. So once they find their person, do they just hang with that person? Again, your great family dog. Do they leave and come back and check on their person? Great dogs. Great. Those are great dogs, not my dogs. Those are great dogs. Or do they just go, hey, see ya, I'm out. I'm checking things out. I'm really independent. Those are my dogs. Those are the ones I like. They're crazy. There's not many in a litter, maybe any in a litter, but there's usually, my litters, one puppy, two puppies like that. And that's usually the crazy that I like. Now, that's not the crazy you're going to like. And that's okay. The trick is it's not about the puppy. It's about the match to the handler. That's the key. So you can keep testing puppies all day long, but if you don't recognize what you need as a handler and what you're capable of as a handler and what you want to struggle with as a handler, you are doing a really big disservice to the dog, because at the end of the day, it's got to be about both. It's got to be about that match. So when I know that I'm looking for that type of a dog, and for my first search dog, tested as that perfect blend. And that seemed to be my breeders made a great choice, and he was a wonderful dog for me. But I squished him. I didn't mean to. I didn't know. They didn't know. I'm a lot. And I have an intensity about my work. And so that was a lot. Even though I was doing only positive reinforcement with him, I smushed him. And I will never forget that experience. And never, I mean, that dog had so much potential, and he did wonderful things, and he had a great career, but not the career he could have had if I'd known then what I know now, which is always how it works with our first dog, right? And so then I got Rio, who was just this dynamo of independence, and I was able to harness that in a really good way to do our work. So Quest, when we get down to Quest, the test was pretty questionable because I didn't have an independent person, and there are some things that went on in how I raised them. Since this isn't a video about raising puppies, I'm going to leave that. I'm just going to say the testing was skewed, but I could tell, I knew he was not that super independent dog. I knew that. I knew he was not the dog that I generally love to see, and I knew that, but I saw a lot of things in him that I thought were appropriate. And he reminded me in some ways of Cosmo. Now, Cosmo was a dog, anybody that knows me in the sport knows Cosmo was a dog that I lost very young, tragically. He was an incredibly talented dog. I lost him to cancer at 4, and it was awful. But, and Cosmo is great-grandfather to Quest. But Cosmo tested not crazy independent either. And he was very clear. Every once in a while you see a puppy kind of pick me. Cosmo picked me. He's like, I'm yours. And I'm like, nope, you don't test like one of mine. I'm not taking you. And I thought, like, I understand the match thing now, and I'm not going to make this mistake. I made this mistake once, and out of just like, I love this puppy, and I did it. And I knew Cosmo was going to be a really solid dog. But then, like, he was too much for the home that I had for him, so I decided I'll raise him, and then I'll sell him when he's about a year old. I'll do the raising, and I'll sell him. He'll be a great police dog somewhere. It'll be great. And what I did to raise him was I didn't do obedience with him. I knew that the dependent side of him, the side to check in with me, was really strong, and I know that I'm really strong at making a dog really check in with me and engage with me. That's my strength. That's my superpower. I needed him to be independent. And I needed that. I knew I'd need that for police work. And I didn't think I was going to show him in the sport, so I didn't do all the obedience with him. And I just let him kind of grow up. And boy, that accentuated his independence. That side of him that existed as a puppy but wasn't primary became primary because of nurture, because of how he was raised, or in this case, Sherry's hands were off. And so he grew into every bit of dog he could be. And so that was amazing and awesome. And so that's sort of what the decision I made with Quest is Quest showed me a lot of the similar things that I saw with Cosmo. A really super solid dog, some things that remind me of his grandfather, Baxter, some of the things that I love the most, some things that I think are going to be very powerful in our work, but also reminds me a little bit of his dad and of Cosmo. His dad is a Cosmo grandson. And I was like, okay, I think he's the right dog for me, but I know that if I, Sherry, do obedience with him a lot, even in positive reinforcement, he's just going to be like, I love you. And he's already like, I love you. I'm like, I need you to be strong in yourself. I need you to figure out that you are kind of a badass without me. I don't need you to be dependent on me. So I need you in your young life to recognize your own strength and your own power, because genetically, I didn't see it. It might have been there if the raising had been slightly different. But like I said, Mike was having some surgeries, so our whole whelping setup got changed to accommodate that. So we had kind of an anomaly. So maybe it would have, maybe it wouldn't have, I don't know. But that was sort of the point, that I don't know, but I know what I saw. And I saw a little bit of over-dependence on me when he was very, very young. So I made the decision to literally raise the dog in front of me and be like, okay, I'm going to let him hang out with Gizzy and the labs and become strong there. I did the same thing with Malinois that I had that was very tied into me. and I let him just go hang out with a couple of other dogs, just like I did with Cosmo, and let them really be able to be strong in themselves without me. And then when they were about a year old, I took them in and I started their obedience and I started their work. And I think that's really what the key is, you guys. Especially, it's not just about communicating with clarity, which it is, but it's also about understanding the dog in front of you and understanding what the dog needs. Because what I'm looking at is not, can the dog be a podium dog? I'm looking at, here's the strengths and weaknesses. Here's where I want them to be. How do I get from here to there? So if I just said, every dog I'm going to do obedience as a puppy because it's really good to do that with, like, I used to believe that until I crushed a really strong dog by doing just positive reinforcement obedience because I had sort of a social pressure and intensity that was too much for him. So I've learned sometimes it's better, depending on your personality, to let the dog grow up a little bit without you. And that's the decision I made with Quest. And so that's why we're starting later. Yeah, so that's it. That's sort of the story. I can talk more about the nurture side, but I think I'll do that in another video. It is important to understand how to take the traits that you see in puppy testing. If you're really good at this, you can look at the traits you see in puppy testing, look at where you want to go, and figure out your training plan around that puppy's strengths and weaknesses, which for me is what we should all be doing anyway. But so often people get a puppy and they have a trainer and you're just doing the things, and that's normal and that's okay. But once you know better, you look at the puppy and you're like, what is your strengths? What is your weaknesses? Where you want to go and develop for the puppy to become the strongest dog they can be. Okay? All right, you guys. Hope that clears things up on why we waited so long with Quest. And I'm looking forward to getting you the first videos of his training. Okay, talk to you guys later. Bye.